Okay, so I've been becoming increasingly frustrated with my GameCube controllers. So, what's been happening that's enraged me, filled me with anger and fury like never before, is that the joystick here, when you let go of it, if you look at this, if I can feel it touching my finger all the way out to here when I let go. So it's flinging all the way back to there. So half of its range of motion, it's actually, when you let go of it, it actually registers half of its analog input in the opposite direction when you let go. So if I'm running this way and I let go, I will momentarily run in the opposite direction, which is really bad in games where you really need the game to behave in the way you expect it to. You don't expect it to actually register in the opposite direction when you let go of the controller in one direction. So, I mean, it was really frustrating. So what happened because of this, that frustrated me, was in Brawl, when I would dash grab, so dash grab like that. But what happened instead of me dashing and grabbing is I'd dash and then I'd pivot grab, I'd turn around. So it's really annoying when you set up a grab really nice and then you turn around and you're totally vulnerable, especially when you're Samus. It's really annoying. And with this controller, I actually got this controller as the controller I use. And it got so bad, I mean, look how loose this is. The looser it got, there's no what do you call it? There's no resistance here, and it doesn't register. But what happens is, as you let go, because there's no resistance here, it carries it forward, it carries it through further. So every time I let go of this controller, it would totally turn around my character. Every single time. It became really annoying. Okay, so that began to get me really frustrated. And once I was frustrated, I started to think about other things that were kind of that I wasn't satisfied with the analog sticks. The other big one that I was not satisfied with was the fact that, okay, although the analog stick, I'll use this one this time, although the analog stick has a wide range of motion, it's very analog in its range of motion, it's very polar in its feel. It feels, you have it at center, or you have it all the way. It's basically the feel of the thing. It doesn't really register very well in your hand to only do like a tiny bit. You can't make really minute control with it. I mean, it's in order to overcome the spring that centers it, you're basically lurching it almost all the way, just automatically. It's like So in games where you need fine control, that's really annoying. Especially because I'm really impatient too. So when I play, so I tend to make quick movements, and it's kind of hard to make a quick, subtle movement. It's kind of hard to go, but you just go, cha, 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 you know. So what I've done to this controller, firstly, I got rid of this. Hear that? Horrible. Look at this now. Oh, isn't that so much better? Isn't this music so fitting for it too? So what I did here is the analog component inside the controller looks like this. Except for on the newer nunchucks. The deck doesn't have this metal around it. It's all solid resin now. But that's okay. But what it has here, it has these prongs that stick out. These prongs are they're just a latch thing. They hold on this piece of plastic, but they protrude a little bit, and they rotate when you rotate the stick. So what I did is I wrapped some rubber around the thing, and these prongs stick into the rubber like a fork. And when you rotate the controller, it twists the rubber. And rubber, unlike a spring, like this thing, it absorbs a lot of the energy and returns it slower. A spring returns all the energy really quickly. Boing, 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 boing. You know, but like a sponge or like a piece of rubber, you press it and it returns slower. Except for like bouncy balls, they're supposed to be like crazy. It's called the rebound. So springs have a ton of rebound, And rubbers, especially like rubbers that aren't designed to have a lot of rebound, have really slow reacting. So I wrapped it with this rubber, and it was actually just part of an inner tube from a tire, from my bike tire. And then, in the attempt to do what I could to solve the polar feel of the analog, is I wrapped it up. So the rubber is now pressing tight against these things here. So as what happened is it gave the resistance of the controller a more progressive feel. The further you move it, the harder it pushes back. And it's pretty subtle because of how, I mean, those are tiny prongs. It's hard to put a lot of force on them, and you know, you wouldn't want to. They can't take a lot of force either. But it helps with the feel a lot. But not as much as I want. But that's what I've done with this controller. And I like it a lot. I'm going to do the same thing with this one. Oh, it feels so nice. And it's quiet. No. No. Yes. Okay. But I'm really not satisfied with this design still. Because... Just because. Check this out. Okay, so if you look at this thing here, this is the analog component. Let me zoom in for you. Alright, so here we are. We are in Insect World, where everything is huge and in focus. Okay, so you can see here, it's just it's a plastic sphere at the end of this thing, which is inside another plastic sphere, which is inside a plastic ring. So it's like 3 spherical things all rubbing against each other and wearing each other out. That would probably be fine if it was an actual, you know, abrasive resistant plastic like nylon or Delrin, but it's not. It's a weaker plastic. And so it wears out rather quickly because of all that rubbing in there. So I decided I'd like to have another, I'd like to come up with another way to make a joystick work, besides having it work like this. So what I came up with was this. Okay, so check this out. This is a joystick, and as you push it, it's okay. Even without, and it doesn't have any springs or anything attached to it yet, and it will by the time I'm done with it. But even without springs, it gives you a really controlled. You can feel how far it is, how far you're pushing it. There's no desire to go It's like, no, you can move it a little bit. You can move it really easily, just tiny bit. I'll move it a tiny bit left. Right, and you can do it quickly. Or you can do a lot quickly. Which is something you can't do. You can't do a little bit of motion quickly with this thing. You have to do a lot of motion in order to make it quick. So, that's the first thing, is this. Which is awesome, okay? But the other thing about this is, in order to make this work, how are you going to measure how much it's rotated? Isn't that a problem with this design? So what I came up with that is, see, look at this. See, these are the potentiometers, these things that have the prongs in them. They measure how much this shaft, right, that little white shaft there, they measure how much that's rotated. So what I actually plan to do with this instead is, check this out, it'll rest upon a 1 square inch touchpad. And to demonstrate the idea, let's change our focus. Okay, here we are. To demonstrate my idea, it'll be a 1-inch touchpad that this rests on. Check this out. Let me. It doesn't quite work right because this is designed so that when you move, it moves it's relative motion. So when you move a little to the side, it goes a little and then it stops. It goes a lot and then it stops. It goes a lot more and then it stops. See? So in a dual analog, what happens is you move a little and he spins really slow, and you move a lot and he goes brrr and spins faster. So spin slower, spin faster. Okay. This one, it's set up here. It's going to be turn a little, turn a lot. It's a subtle but very important difference. So anyway, so as I demonstrate the idea here to you, proof of concept model here, stick it on this thing here. The problem here is this thing slides around. There you go. So I can use it as a stylus too, until I get set up right. Okay, sit on the thing, and look at this. So I can make really subtle movements up, down, or you can make really fast ones, really easily. And I'm actually looking through the screen of the camera, not of the. Oh, okay. Let's not look through the screen of the camera. Okay, so we're going through and we're shooting stuff. And one thing that's hard to do is jumping because then the thing falls off. Ah! Ow! And I dropped it. That's under the desk. Ugh. Okay, anyway. But it actually works really good. So, but there's actually a problem that's still here. Oh, I don't know how much detail I want to go into this. Anyway, this stuff is good. This feels so good. Like, it's kind of frustrating that it's not set up to actually use it like a joystick, but it feels really nice. Anyway, the issue is that I still have, that they're still there, is that because of this shape here, well, if you look at it, it's actually kind of parabolic, the bottom of this thing. So if you do a little bit of motion, it's actually covering a real large area. So if you just hook it up in one from the input of the, for this, if you hook it up just one-in-one motion for the input on a touchpad, because the surface is flatter, when you move it a little bit, this distance the contact patch travels is going to be greater. So what's going to end up happening is, when you move a little bit, it's actually registering a lot at the bottom. Whereas you go to the edge, you're moving it a little bit, or you're moving it a lot, and it's registering a little bit. So look, same amount flat is like crazy. So what you'd have to do is you'd have to map it. You'd have to map the angle onto the touchpad, which would make it so that its most fine-tuned motions would be right around here. You could make really subtle movements here, and it'd have a high, I don't know if it registers in dot per inches, but it has the most, it's registering the most area on the touchpad. So anyway, it'd be really cool. So I've decided to go and try and build a working model of this. And this is how far I've gotten so far. I don't know how far I'll get, but I felt like explaining it and sharing it, and seeing if what other things people are displeased with about their analog sticks. See if I can address those too while I'm, brainstorming and fiddling around and stuff. That's it. That's it. Alright, I'm done.